what was one instructional practice that we as a collaborative team can identify in need of improvement? And so I know we kind of talked about, I'm going to kind of take some notes here. So I guess student culture, behavior, things like that.
Yeah, I think kind of the main thing we've been talking about so far is just keeping high expectations, like keeping it consistent throughout the different classes, and then also keeping it consistent like the whole year. Even though we're coming to the end, it should still be the same as when we first started.
Exactly right. And so, and with us kind of switching classes and each teaching our own subject, I think it's even more important that we're consistent too. And so yeah, so if we're kind of focusing in on student culture and behaviors, and I know we've kind of talked a lot about reward systems and different ways that we're rewarding behaviors, but basically the second question that I wanted us to talk through was what action steps do we feel like need to be taken to improve the student culture and behavior? Like, what are steps that we can take as a team, action steps that we feel like need to happen to really kind of hone in on that and improve that? And anyone feel free to jump in, open to everyone.
Like, to me, it kind of is a series of, like, the first step is a consistency, like every, teachers, staff-wise, being on the same page, like we talked about, with having the consistent expectations across the board. And then a plan for, like we talked about, encouraging those positive behavior kind of systems for the kids that are meeting expectations, and also what we do for the kids that need some sort of behavior intervention. I hate to use the word consequence because I feel like that's a bad word now, but kind of like how we have them to teach them to reflect and like I like Lori's think.
It's called a stop and think.
The stop and think, yeah. And I used that a couple years back when I was in second grade, but I guess it technically is a consequence. Like, I would have my kids sometimes do it for, like, it takes like 5 minutes at the beginning of recess or something, but something that it guides them through what their choice, like what the choice or negative choice was, kind of, but think back to like what caused it, why did it happen, how are you gonna fix it? It just is, and rather than just like, okay, you're still talking, that's 5 minutes of recess, it puts some meaning in it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think rewards are great, and I think there needs to be positive consequences, and if there are behaviors that pop up that we are trying to kind of extinguish, I think that's definitely good to have.
And the good thing about those are, you can either send them home so parents are kind of aware of what's going on, but they're also good documentation for, like, are we seeing consistent, like, something that happens like patterns, is it happening again and again, is it happening at specific times, is for those kids that might be need more what's the word,
guidance, maybe.
True intervention. Like, if those kids that there might be more than just your run-of-the-mill, like, every now and then issue. Those kind of frequent flyers that you might have to come up with a more detailed plan with. You have something to go on, rather than just like, it seems like, you actually have some data in front of you.
Yeah.
And try to also, along with that, sort of highlight the really good behaviors. So for when some of those kids like stand out, like, sometimes staying in your chair is not a standout thing, but like if they're in their chair, you kind of like, oh, good job guys in your chairs, raise your hand if you need to get up, things like that. So those other students that may fall into that category will see, well, they're getting this sort of normal praise that I would like to get also in a different way.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I think it's good to have a layer system, like we've talked about, starting kind of, because towards the beginning of the year we were just trying to throw it all together because we didn't know what we were doing. It was just this, we're coming back to school and figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that, having that reward system, and then now having, like, developing the stop and think, and then also having, like, I think we're all doing the sticker thing now, didn't we start doing that? Yeah. So I guess the next step would be making sure that we have, like, at least somewhat consistent rewards, or at least similar.
Yeah.
So that the kids don't be like, well, this class gets to do this, but we don't, so.
Right.
I think that would be the next logical step, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what I heard was looking at having rewards. So that would definitely be an action step, talking about what's one thing we can all do. I think at this point we're all kind of doing a sticker reward like you mentioned, and so we do have that kind of going individually for those kids that are kind of standing out. And so yeah, rewards would definitely be one of the steps. And I'll put consequences, maybe using the stop and think sheet as another step.
Which we can also change those too. It doesn't have to stay like the same format that it is. It can change.
That's true. That's true.
There could be different ones, like depending on what.
Do we feel like there need to be expectations as far as like what we're looking for, and just so the kids understand how they can obtain those rewards, kind of things like that?
I think as we, and y'all jump in too, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But I think if we do the stickers, then it should be set up beforehand, like what they're for. Like if you're telling a kid, okay, here's a sticker, but it's not just here's a sticker because XYZ, you're in your seat, or here's a sticker because you follow directions. So like they learn what the stickers are actually for, why they're getting them.
So that'll kind of reinforce the specific behavior that we want to see, we want more of, kind of thing. I think that's a great idea.
And it's sort of weird for me just because I'm not with them in the classroom, but I feel like at this point, they are aware of what the expectations are, and sometimes it's slightly different in different classrooms, but I think that's where we need to focus on us as teachers having the same expectation and the same similar. You're gonna have different thresholds as people, like this is too much talking, this, they just have to adapt to that. But I don't ever think it hurts to clarify and go over expectations again, and that's any year, but especially I think this year because there's just been so much weirdness.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So and I feel like we all kind of went over rules in our own classrooms. Do we think it might be helpful to do like a grade level set of expectations, like for example, so I saw in your room, for example, that I think yours were like respect, responsibility, and there's another R, I forget what it was.
Usually it's be respectful, be responsible, be safe. Is that the school?
I think that was it. And so that's definitely something we could look at. So what I have so far for the action steps is develop a set of expectations, set up a reward system, which it sounds like we've all kind of started. We can just kind of talk through how to make that consistent across the board, and then set up a consequence system where they would do a stop and think sheet. And so does that kind of sound like what we talked about?
That sounds right.
All right. So the next question after that, and we're halfway there, is what challenges will we run into, and how can we overcome them? Just as we're kind of setting up a plan, putting it in place, what are some challenges, and how can we overcome them?
Motivation.
Yeah. I was about to say buy-in, because some of them have gotten to the point where they're kind of like, I don't know if you've noticed this in your class or your class.
Oh yeah.
But some of them try to make others feel self-conscious about wanting to participate.
Being like positive about it.
And being positive about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have kind of this sour attitude about it. But once some of them started seeing, at least in my class, what the rewards were potentially for, a lot of them were like, oh, well, I want to participate in that, or I want to do that. And then they were like, oh, well, maybe I should stop doing what I'm doing and actually get to work. Or
I am actually 112% addressing that tomorrow. Like that is something I was like, oh, I got something. So my sticker system actually now comes with some sort of reward tier category. So again, the more stickers you get, the more access you can get to those things.
Yeah.
So the buy-in, of course, is at this point, I think everyone has a sticker, at least one. So then when they see to that threshold, like, oh, if I get 5 stickers, I can participate in this. Then they'll actually start seeing, wait a minute, I don't want to be left out in that, and we'll see. Or the ones that only have 4 and they need that one.
That's where I think, and I know we've talked about this before, but letting the kids come up with a reward themselves will guarantee you buy-in because they came up with it.
And I literally put a Google form for that, and then all of the things that they put, I put on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all that they created, they came up with
Good.
it.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think, just thinking about like next year too, like I think it's important to be consistent across the grade level with the whole plan, because it's when we're departmentalized, everybody is everybody's, it's all one big class basically.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do a better job in the beginning of what are how the coming up with them all, so that it's consistent across the grade level. Expectations were the same, but I think just because of the weirdness of the year, it just seems like it is more class-based than it was previously. So I think that's something we need to look back on.
Yeah.
Kind of looking towards next year.
Yeah, consistency is definitely good. All right. So I had, so building buy-in, kind of a challenge, and yeah, just like you guys said, I've kind of seen that with my kids as well. Letting kids come up with rewards and having consistency across the grade level. All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to question 4? All right, so last one. After we kind of developed the plan and address challenges and whatnot, the last one is how will our work affect student culture? And so, like, how will it positively affect SAGling? How will it positively affect the grade level? Assuming, like, after the plan is done and assuming it's successful, I guess, how will it affect student culture?
Well, I can say that I've already kind of noticed a difference in some of the classes because they've bought into it big time. So like, they are now, if they start seeing me go around and like rewarding people for being on task, all of a sudden those kids that are not on task are like, wait, what are we supposed to be doing? And then they figure out what's happening, and so then they get on task. Or I've also had like a case where they're now asking, like, what else can I do? Can I help you with something? So it's like it's almost fostered an additional level of respect of like, how can I help?
Yeah.
Because I also want to, now yes, they're trying to earn the sticker, but at the same time, like, it's teaching them that trait without outright saying, I'm teaching you respect.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so definitely one of the obvious things that came to mind was like, well, obviously it'll positively affect student culture. I don't think anything that we're talking about doing would negatively affect it. So yeah, it seems like it would positively affect it, and it's good that we've kind of already seen some differences, and yeah, I think it'll kind of be, I'm trying to think of how to say this, kind of create some momentum once the improvement starts. Then maybe it'll kind of go to other kids too, and more kids will start getting on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know with the age that our kids are at, especially as they get closer to middle school, some of them are not as involved, I guess, not as involved as they used to be or excited about school, and so I think these are rewards, and the plan I think will help with that too, kind of reel them back in a little bit.
And at this point, also in the year, it would help them continue on that momentum into junior high. So like, the immediate effect is how it's going on in real time.
Yeah.
But if we can, continue that reinforcement of the good habits, then at the next level, they're ready to continue on that in 6th grade and 7th grade, especially when things are back to normal and, you know, we're not behind masks and shields and we're a little more close to each other. Then all of a sudden, that interpersonal relationship they have in the classroom to help them learn will also be something that they can take forward and say, hey, I was, you know, doing good things here in 5th grade. It was a little weird, but then we figured it out. But I continue on, so in 6th and 7th grade, when things aren't as weird, then they're still better students and they continue to grow.
Yeah. And you, as someone who has taught middle school, probably seeing the expectations kind of get higher as they get older, and it's good that they start making those growths now. All right. Any other thoughts on that topic, student culture, anything like that? All right. So that being said, I will kind of put the action steps that we talked about into a workable plan and kind of email you guys the notes and